Hello, welcome to another edition of Low-Code Campfire. This is episode number 154 for July 12th, 2024. It is an open lines Friday, which kind of sounds like we don't know what we're going to talk about, but we have a full agenda today. This is an event we do every Friday, except, well, the 4th of July this year, I guess. But it's an event that we do to talk about low coding in general, Plant an app in specific, techniques, challenges, experiences, helping you move along in your low code journey. But this is open to everyone. Everyone's welcome. We do we record all these, we put them out on YouTube, and that becomes part of our documentation. You can watch there or search there, and you might get referred there if you do a help question. If we've talked about it, I try and refer you back to a discussion where we've shown it off. All these, this is the general agenda. We say hello, and then we always do first call or anything that got submitted in advance, and then we'll talk about any of these other things. But as I mentioned, there's something in every category today. There's contributions, there's community feature requests, our low-code development playbook where we talk about best practices, and even a ghost story. So we've got a lot to get to and only an hour to do it. If you have very few guidelines, but if you've got noise going on, we love you to use the mute button. Other than that, it's a pretty freewheeling discussion. You can submit questions and topics in advance, either use this QR code or look for the links that we send you in the emails, or you can email me personally. And with that, hello, welcome back. It's been 2 weeks.
Happy Friday.
Happy
Good
Friday.
morning.
Hello, hello.
All right. So we have an opportunity. If you what is if it's something you want to talk about, we want to talk about it. You have an agenda. We also got a suggestion not that too long ago. Okay, Ben saved me. What's up, Ben?
Just a quick question. I was just curious, does anyone here um, do anything low code wise through Plankton app to detect or watch to see if there are any potential hacking attempts to one's site? I take the silence as a no.
I like to give people a little bit of an answer. So I think it could be done, and I do something a little bit, which is to say there the event log, the DNN event log, has lots of opportunities. Like, I mean, it logs uh, unsuccessful login attempts, for example. I have a SQL query that looks at log events and categorizes them and shows numbers. So, for example, I can see how many login failures have occurred within the last 7 days. And it's just part of my general watching the logs to see see what kind of things are going on, because there's more than just hacking attempts. But that would qualify, right? If you being able to see that 1 week there's nothing and another week there's, and this is the last rolling 7 days is what I'm showing. So being able to use that and say, okay, if this number is above 5 or 100 or whatever your tolerance is, you could take action through an automation. So it's possible. I'm half the way there.
Okay, I just wanted to. That's honestly that's the route that I was going, was just looking at the log, because DNN does have such a robust auditing trail in its logging. So, I was looking for things like 404s, general exception, module load exception,
Mhm.
invalid logins, things like that. And like you said, tallying them up for a certain time range. But I wasn't sure if that was like the right way to go, or if there was some other, method that may be better that someone else may happen to know about or something. But thank you, I appreciate it.
Sure. So in my I'll to show I really really did this thing. I mean, this is just a SQL query that out of that events table, and it says there's 39 of these general exceptions and 39 of those general exceptions and 21 operation. So just kind of, I just refer to this as a general health thing. Um, just for fun, I'll show the query. I haven't looked at it. I don't know how nice this is behind it, but yeah, it's just running running a grouping query, which is the kind of thing I think. I mean, I'd be happy to share this, but this is one thing. The other that occurs to me is that the IIS logs, which are typically outside the domain of the .NET Nuke file system, so you wouldn't be able to directly access them, but with a PowerShell, you could access them or bring them in for analysis and do stuff with them. So that'd be another way to low code.
The result of those queries would look real good on a dashboard.
Yes, they could. Wish we could do dashboards. Oh, wait, that's the topic for Wednesday.
Well,
Yeah. Maybe I will. That's a fun one. I might logins, number of logins, administrator logins, all the kinds of events. I think I'm probably focusing on exceptions here. I don't remember my query, but focusing in on the login events and dragging those into dashboards would be kind of a neat one and universal one. So thanks for that suggestion. All right, any other first call? I had many things to get to, so let me jump in on the first one. Version 126. So first of all, just a general check-in for those of you who have jumped to our latest release version that was released just a month ago, June 13, after a year of development, a very long development cycle for us. Anyone have any feedback on 126?
I'm still using it heavily, and I have had a very good experience with it.
Well, thanks for that. All my, I wanted to mention this dependency update is planned. So normally we try to release hot fixes. You get to choose whether to install them and when. And we do have another release mechanism, which I think we call dependency update, but it just means when we push the button, the next time you get into configuration, you have to take, I mean, you either take it or don't, but until you take it, you can't do anything in the configuration menu. So it's a little bit more of a forced experience, and we like to give a heads up that something like that is coming. So production users just be aware that there is one of these planned in the next week or two. We're working our way through the process, but we made a pretty major update. It would be inconvenient to do it through hotfixes, so we'll be, when we do it, doing it through a dependency update. If you're on 126, we will let you know when that's coming, and you might work that into your plans as to whether you're ready to jump to 126 or not. I'll take your questions. Okay. Next, we have a feature request segment, and I don't know if there's any. I put one out there just as a topic starter. Didn't get any feedback yet, so I'll mention it here too. We are focusing on getting a starter plan out, and that's part of what we're going to do in 127. And the general idea is that DNN Sharp, our historical, where we come from, we used to release modules, and now we release Plant an App as a whole system that incorporates almost all of those modules. And so that change introduced a huge price point difference. You could buy individual modules for a flat fee and use them forever, and now we have a whole system, and it's charging appropriately for a whole system. So we're looking at something mid-ground, a starter plan that says you can use some of our features for a lower amount of money as compared to using all of our features for the subscription price. And so the starter plan would be something, for example, that would include our entity builder, being able to build tables, and then forms listings to interact with the entities, being able to add and delete records, add, edit, delete records, and the tabs to organize. So it's just kind of the very core product, and that would, as I put here, we anticipate it would have a runtime component and a developer component, and wondering what kind of reaction we would get to such a plan. We're going in that direction, but wondering what questions you might have about if we introduced some kind of plan like that.
Well, I think it's a great idea to get people started on the platform. And I think those features that you showed are very good. I did have a first reaction to the item for core tokens. And it's just a first reaction, take it as you wish, but I was thinking maybe you could allow people to make a very small number of their own tokens. And that would be like an enticement when you'd say, well, gosh, I made a token for this and look how great it works and I wish I could have more. Maybe you give them, I don't know, 10 tokens, 20 tokens, and then cut them off, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought, my first reaction.
Well, good. Thanks for the feedback. That as you make a good point that as a new user coming in and seeing that there are core tokens, if you have no way to build any, you don't necessarily get the idea of what they are. So knowing whether or not to do it as an enticement, that's a good point. Thanks.
Hey, Dale, would the target for this be sort of proof of concept sort of environments?
I don't think so. From a proof of concept standpoint, we already offer a free plan that gives you a month's worth of getting into the product that you can do anything. So if you want to, but I think it's more on the it's targeted towards the lower end, smaller budget, smaller functionality. So somebody can start off with our products, and if what you're really trying to do is keep up with some data, and I don't want to minimize because you could do a lot, but for example, if you're just trying to replace a Excel spreadsheet kind of a thing with a system where you have a database and listings that do filtering and a little bit of button actions and send an email, a little bit of programming. So it's I think we're targeting getting a starter, trying to people trying to get entry into this, and then realizing that there's so much more that they want and need to do if you're beyond. I mean, if you as your needs grow, or yeah. So I don't think it's intended for proof of concept. I think we would be, if you want to do proof of concept, I think we would find other ways to work with you so that you can move right on into our harvest or enterprise levels.
I have a potential client actually who is one of the things they're looking to do is replace a series of spreadsheets with a connected system that would, in this case, place sales orders and manage the process throughout. So something like this might be perfect for them.
And you as a developer, this would be the kind of thing that maybe they wouldn't develop on their own. It would be you would assist them in doing. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, yeah. Basically, they come to me. I mean, this may not work, but the idea is they have a set of requirements. They do things this way. They want to do improve the processes and so on and so forth. And so I would engage with them to presumably build out a proof of concept and then give them a high value, low cost platform to run on, and this may be perfect.
Yep. The and I think that is our target, and the idea of a runtime component, meaning something that would be a low cost for them on an ongoing basis, and per developer for you, meaning as a developer, you would have access to the administrative screens and be able to make changes for them. If they just get the runtime, then it does the thing that they want, but they wouldn't have access to either change or mess up what you've done.
Yeah, that sounds great. Fantastic, actually.
Well, to be in, I've took down your potential interest, and we'll be as that perks along. I mean, it's something that we've been laying the groundwork for some time. In 126, we added a lot of licensing flags so that individual features can be turned on and off. And our goal in releasing it at 126 was to release it with everything turned on so that none of you would be impacted by us turning off things that that were included, but that in future releases we could turn on and sell licenses for things like a starter plan.
Yeah, I think the thing you're getting at, and I totally agree, is minimizing or maximizing the onboarding of new clients.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. Like it.
Thank you. Any other questions or reactions? Good. Thanks for the feedback. Have any more? You can always reach out to me on the help desk or by email.
Hi, Dale. Hi, Dale. Jerry here. Just, I think that's the best single idea we've had in a long time. You have no idea how often we've had this conversation among our staff that if we could just get our people boarded with, if it's just forms, listings, tokens, just some little minimal thing to get them hooked in and prove how good this stuff really is. Yeah, I'm gonna back out now and just say, let's do this as fast as our engineers will allow us to.
Well, thank you. For you, as you think about that, are there either the things that I had on the screen or what you would be interested in seeing in a starter plan? Because forms, listings, tabs, I did a whole lot prior to Plantain App. I did a whole lot of work. You could get a bunch done with forms, listing, and tabs and tokens.
I could build the entire world with just what I see on this screen to get somebody into a place where they're actually doing data processing and just so much could be done with just the the forms, listings, and tokens would take me to the moon. But teaching them the entity builder and bringing them onto our new way of thinking is just phenomenal. So yeah, and of course tabs.
We and just for anybody following on or who doesn't know the product, are so many more enterprise level or professional level things that are available that that you don't get or you wouldn't get with a starter plan. And so there's, for example, workflows or automation, the ability to run things on a schedule or as a result of triggers, workflows to encapsulate logic. search to be able to find things. There's so many other enterprise grade features that would be available, but so it's kind of this, you can build a ton on a starter plan. You might some portion of those people are going to want a more robust platform, and all that's there. So good.
Yeah, I think everybody wants the biggest, best package we have, whether they need it or not. But it's a hard pill to swallow on day one. You hook
Mm-hmm.
them with forms and listings and tokens, and then they're just that it's just like feeding them breadcrumbs, and then they're just going to beg for more, and then it becomes a super easy sell to get them into one of our better licenses.
And then in our, again, going back to our history, you used to be able to get those breadcrumbs as individual modules, and we had to make a decision what we can offer and support. And so now, except for Action Form and Search Boost, you can't get those. And we're really on track that we don't know for how long we will technically be able to continue offering Action Form and Search Boost. That's not a product announcement. That's just there's realities behind. I mean, is it 1 year or 10 years? But there's some limit. So this would then put back where there is a starter path that is a robust starter path. So, cool.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I think I can't speak for all other engineers on this call's clients, but our clients tend to start out broke, and it's kind of funny because they go from rags to riches faster than anybody else I know. Not all of them make it though, but the ones that start, they all start out broke, and of the few that go to the riches, it goes really fast, and so that's a nice path. But those that start out broke and they're trying to do a concept or an idea and nobody's really sure if it's going to take off or not, this is the perfect start for them. And then the second it starts to move and starts to roll for them, they're going to say, okay, we need bigger, better. And we say, oh, we've got bigger, better. It's just we had to wait for you to be able to afford it. And so, yeah, I'll hush. This is a fantastic idea.
Well, thanks. From a stability standpoint, when you're having that conversation, if I mean, essentially, this is going to be it will be where the entire product is installed, but portions of it are available. So when it turns into that bigger, better sale, it's just a question of turning on licensing, and so it's going to be a very stable move for them, right? The experience would be, okay, now these things that had a red X on them now work, so they'll all be there anyway. Nice path. Okay, thanks. Thanks for the feedback. I wanted to jump in. I had a campfire contribution. I did one. I was actually doing we're taken to doing low code product reviews now, that not product change reviews. So as some of our internal systems are changing, it's done by one developer. Another developer will take a look at it and say, look at the techniques and just make sure we're following our low code best practices, our playbook, and also just verify that it's working right. So another set of eyes. And I was charged with doing one of these, and I saw a really nice technique that I didn't think had been out there. It's been documented in our JavaScript documentation, but not really nicely presented. So I took a moment to do it. So this is all about using JavaScript to do some things that you can't do easily through low code. And so anyway, with that introduction, watch the query string here and what happens to these boxes. If I click on the phase 1 box, it pops phase 1. Notice that it wasn't a full screen refresh, by the way, and yet this we get the box change and the string change. If we go to phase 2, same thing. I'm doing a little bit of work here. If you have phase 1 or phase 2, you can't re-click phase one. You had a little bit of button selection logic here. This button adds something and removes something at the same time from the query string. So it removed the phase and added a source. And so now we have, this is just adding a phase and leaving source alone. And this pulls it all away. So all this is being done with pretty simple JavaScript. And again, it's on our, let's do start phase one button, has some execute some JavaScript. And I've been a bit voluminous here with some comments and stuff, but this is getting the query string. This is setting the phase to 1. This is setting a variable that's converting it back to a URL, and this is pushing it onto the browser. So with actually 4 lines of code, this is just adding something. And then in the one that removes some content from there, it's same statement, getting it, removing phase and adding source, and then pushing it back onto the browser. So I don't know if that's something. Oh, and then I'm sorry, before I go away from that, the next step in all these after running the JavaScript is to initialize this form, the same form that we're on, and stop execution. So this is the form then re-triggers based on what's in the query string, and yet doesn't do a page refresh. It would just be the form. So we click a button, the query string gets manipulated, the form reinitializes. So these values, this is the initial value of phase is the get phase, and the initialized value of source is get source. Is that just, is anyone impressed by any of that? I thought it was a neat technique.
Heck yeah. It's awesome.
Okay. Well, even though I had to beg for the affirmation, thanks for that. If nothing else, I just like having these things out here on Campfire so that when I want to use it, it's like, okay, let's go copy some code instead of researching the how to do that in the off the JavaScript sheet. So hopefully that will be of some benefit to someone else if it comes up for you. All right. So I'll just mention, if you're not part of it, the Campfire website, anybody who participates in this call can just, you can shoot me a request, and on the meeting chat, for example, and I'll add you as a user to this. It just means that you can open these up and get to the site, see the examples of how things were implemented, and be able to do some copy and pasting. And it comes at the price of $0 and the promise that you won't break things if we give you the password to look behind the scenes. Okay. What else? We have a so our low-code development playbook. This is our internal book that we're developing. That's all our best practices. And so Bogdan made a suggestion that button colors should have meaning. And so it looks something like this, where thinking about buttons just from a UI design, having if every form on, you got 10 forms on a page or listings or on different pages, and if there's no holistic approach to coloring the buttons, then every page can be jarring and different. And so getting you to think about it in advance, what are you trying to do, and what so his suggestions were that that colors have meaning, and that there's a we call it a primary color, meaning in our in our theme, there's a primary color defined and a secondary color defined, and so using the primary color of the website to indicate a main button, and he's suggesting that there should only be one main button. There's a secondary color that if there's a secondary action that might be useful to use the secondary color, or there's an info class to call out a different color. Permanent destructive suggested to be red, but maybe using the outline version. So there's a version of our buttons that outline in red, and then when you hover it, the whole button goes to red, so that keeps the whole page from being red, having red buttons all over it, but still indicating visually. Yellow for warnings, and using some default color like gray for buttons in general. Anyone feel strongly about this kind of UI? Or do this or don't do it?
Yeah, this is Mark. I would do that. That's good advice. I do already do that on the sites that I give my special attention to make sure they're right. Good practice.
Same. I learned many years ago in an early programming class, they did kind of a psychological piece to programming for like specifically this colors and what the psychological response is for clients looking at something. And that's basically the idea. It's like red, danger, yellow, orange, warning, green, okay, blue, informational, things like that. And I've always used that for the better part of 2 decades. So
Yeah, this is timely for me because I've got a system now where just because of the way it's evolved, I need to go back and look at my level of consistency, or more correctly, my level of inconsistency, and start standardizing things along this. So yeah, this would be very helpful.
I've often followed a pattern where if like for the delete action, if the button you are clicking to delete is going to have a confirmation, I don't like to make it red. And I don't know if we've said that in here anywhere, but because I know he has yellow is for warnings, and he rarely found the case for using it. But I would say that there is a case for using it more often if it's a button that says you're going to delete, but it's not an immediate action. That's my most often use case for yellow. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the only thing I think about using yellow is on screen, it's not as easily discernible. You know, it can, depending upon what else is going on the website and placement and so on, it can kind of get lost. But I understand and, appreciate the concept of kind of a step. Step one is yellow, step two is red with a skull and crossbones or something.
I can understand your point of view, Patrick. Me personally, I kind of go with what Dale was showing here that Bogdan said, and if it's a destructive action, even if it's basically something as a warning before you even do anything that this is like a severe thing that you're doing.
Yeah, and I get that definitely.
Even if there's a confirmation afterwards, I delete, like basically my default deletes is always red, regardless. And I always use a confirmation because that's like that secondary level of, are you absolutely sure you want to do this? But I always want to make it very clear, red button, delete, like you are removing something.
Yeah, and I get that. It's just that sometimes like there might be some options or something like that. And sometimes when I see a red button, I'm, my you know, and this is the psychology behind red, right? My inclination is, oh my gosh, I don't want to click that at all. But there might be something useful behind that red button, like a choice to make or something like that. That's why I'm saying it. Like a case that I'm thinking about is actually on our console site. When you go to restore from a backup, um, you click restore, you get a confirmation with a big red button saying, "Are you sure you want to do this?" But that's not when the restore starts. The restore starts after you get the next page where you get a choice of which backup you want to select. And that's an example of what I think of where I think that, you know, so that red button is saying, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Making it sound like that as soon as you click that, the restore is going to start.
Yeah.
That's
So, and I mean, that's a very good example that that I had to learn also. The idea that I mean, in that particular case, that you're clicking in on something and you kind of have to learn that that really isn't a dangerous thing. That
yeah.
it's the next thing that's dangerous. Um, so that's from a let's just, I won't say it's bad design, but a design that would be more explanatory so that people wouldn't be, you know, you get to be afraid at the right time.
Yeah.
There is a point of no return from and I've always said I'm a black and white guy, or gray, black, white, gray maybe. So colors are a challenge for me, but I mean, I can see them and I just focus more on the words. Um, so, but I kind of like your idea, Patrick. So, for example, a uh, a red button without the outline, without the hover, a red button might be, you might choose to use that for a destructive action that's immediate, versus if you have destructive actions that that have a dialogue following them, maybe you use the outline version. So it's
Yeah.
red on the way in. I think consistency is probably one of the biggest points within your app.
And that's the most important thing right there, is that, yeah, is that you make these decisions, and then if you have multiple people working on your app, that you make sure they're all on board with these decisions. Yeah.
And I've added a couple of more ideas down here as we're talking about them, icons and help text. And I think all these go together in the same way. Uh, I run into buttons within our system that have colors and it's nicely done, but then there's no help text that explains, whoops, that explains what you're going to get when you do that. And I think that's part of the puzzle, right? I'm investigating this button and I don't know whether or not to click it. And if I see the help text that tells me what it's going to do, I can feel better about my choice. And in the same way, and I got this feedback, I was doing some work for Bogdan about what happens when I click this button. Well, if I use it's opening a new tab, and if I use the right icon, it's telling I mean, there's a convenience factor, right? I'm clicking the button and I know that I'm going to open in a new tab. So now I don't have to wonder, am I going to lose my place? And so all of that is all about consistently communicating what's going to happen when you do this thing.
If I could just add one little thing as a
Please.
potential idea. Um, like with what Patrick was saying, where let's say you have a page with a button and it's red, but that's not the actual button that's going to be doing whatever the big warning is. It's in a later page. Typically, what I would do is one of two things, or both. I may still want to keep it red because it still leads you down that path. But number one, I would tend to put some sort of a bold warning, like right above or below the button that says it's the next page that will actually do, whatever that destructive action is. And the other thing would be is any button that leads to another page, if I don't directly word it like go to next step or something like that, if it just says like restore or whatever, if I know it's leading to another page, I would put a right chevron on the right side of that button because that's a visual indication to me that you click this button, you're going to go somewhere else. It's not just going to do something, it's leading you somewhere else.
So for a visual illustration, just because Patrick's example is such a good one. This is our dedicated server. I could set up a restore of my clone site, for example. And so there is this restore button, and it has a nice Lifebuoy icon there. We get, are you sure? A pop-up will appear allowing you to select a backup. So it's kind of the what you say. It's the
Yeah,
warning.
has that text always been there? I don't know if I remember, or maybe I just haven't been reading it. I don't know.
And then these are our
Yeah.
defaults, which yes, pretty sure, and no, I'm having second thoughts are, I think, intended to be thought starters, and yet we often just take the defaults, right? So we have yes, pretty sure, and now we get a, well, what backup do you want? And you got a nice green button
Oh
here
yeah.
that if I pick a backup and now green,
Now
so
that, yeah.
this one really should be the red and the with a help text and a a skull and crossbones. You can't undo this thing, right? So I think it's an important play, this that we're talking about, wherever it went. I got close out stuff here. All the way back here. I think this is an important play, and obviously we haven't abided by it throughout, and so it's part of the idea of getting better. Anybody else with good final thoughts? All right, thanks for investing in that one. We have one more play, and this one is starting to be near and dear to my heart because I've messed it up a couple of times. And the idea is that you want to test your app against every role. So if your system is login based, and you have multiple roles, you've got people who are managers and people that are super users, and or a bad terminology, but let's say executive management, and you've got different roles. People can do different things. Look at the classic example, payroll, to be able to see a salary. I don't get to see my salary. My manager gets to see my salary, but the other managers don't get to see my salary. Executives can see whatever they want. That kind of a thing. It's remember to test against every role. The this next section is if your app is designed to be used anonymously, people can browse to your site and learn something, and they don't need to create an account. Well, so you got to go test it that way, and then a reminder to test incognito regardless, because even if your system is designed to be used only for people who can log in, to think about or to remember to test. I've had systems that we've designed here, and we found out after the fact that if you go to the site as an incognito user and you go through the user registration dialog, that you get access to things that we didn't intend for you to have. So maybe the dialogue for signing in shouldn't have been there. Maybe the dialogue should have been more controlled. But it's just all about testing that the security you intended is actually the security you implemented. Big things that we're missing, or agreement, or suggestions?
Well, I'll be honest with you, the role-based testing is something that I have developed an appreciation for, I have to say. It's bitten me on several occasions where I'm like, wait a minute, it's working. And I realize for that particular type of user, it's not even visible. So yes, totally agree.
I'll chime in. I agree too.
Patrick, I see you're off mute. Where are you?
Oh, my I don't think I was intending to be off mute, but yes, I totally agree as well. There's many
All right.
occasions when when
So this is almost, I mean, so we get general agreement. This is almost just one of those things, project checklist, where in the you got to design security in from the start, but at some point before initial delivery, and then after you've fiddled with it, you've got to go through this check. Is it implementing the security that I thought? So maybe the only the idea to add here is when to test this. All right, so very little controversy. Thanks for playing along. Cool. But wait, there's more. On the community forum, and let's see, everyone on the call knows about community, but just for the recording, mention that community is where you can get help from the Plantain App staff plus the community and other things as available there, but the forum is the main thing. We just had one posted by Wes that I'm sure, and are you guys answering when you get bored listening to me? Yep. Ben is helping people out multitasking. Okay. This one I thought was an interesting one. Somebody wants to remove, they're not using the search, so they want to remove the icon so that people don't try and use it. And this is an area where Plantain App does many things, but it's a subsystem running under DNN.NET Nuke, and so need to, in this case, it's a question of how are themes implemented and what can you do to theme files. This is the suggestion that Ben had, I think, is right on, which, by the way, we should upvote. And in this case, I see that Wes said that was the answer, so I'm going to go ahead and mark that as the accepted answer. But that you can modify, if you know where the files are, you can modify the files and cause a change in behavior. But it's really DNN functionality, not Plantain App functionality. But I think I will add to this answer that if you change Page Builder, which is something that we release, it's going to come back the next time you update. So there's a whole technique of being able to copy a theme to a private theme and then using it from there so that now you're responsible for it and it doesn't, but it's not going to get overwritten. So I'll compose a nice answer there, and this will be my reminder to come back to that. But anytime you change our themes, our default functionality, we've talked about a lot of different ways that you can customize things, but if you do it on stuff that we distribute, then the next release is going to overrate it. So that's good.
As an alternative way to handle that, could put another definition to the class on the page somewhere to just display none, that search class, And then even if the page is changed, assuming you don't change the built-in DNS stuff, it'll still be hidden.
That's a good one to suggest as well. Like anything else in the IT world, there's always multiple right answers, and so picking one and making it work. I said this. I talked about the approach of making a private theme, which you could do. You could also just create a different a copy of just a copy of a file within that same thing, and so long as you name it uniquely, you might be able to continue to all keep it within Page Builder, and yet just have a different section that you're using. So add maybe a copy our page type and use that, and then you'd still have both available, not have to maintain a completely separate copy. So but it's a DNN thing, and I'll mention that there are resources out there if you search for DNN theming or skinning, that you'll bump into those kinds of things.
Hey Dale, could you address another one of those questions in the community forum? And specifically mine about 3 down. Inject CSS for JS into action form. There you go.
You asked a question and didn't get any answers. What was it?
Sum it up. I want to put JS into the page that loads the manage fields view of action form.
Mm-hmm. So there is those manage screens have to be using some form of a container, and there's again, this is a DNN thing, what container gets used, but I suspect you could, if you knew what container or how to set it, you might be able to set it to your own custom container and then modify it.
Yeah, I was thinking along the same similar line that it has to use a page theme as well. And if I knew which one that was, I could go find it.
So if I go into, and Patrick, you may know what this is a DNN question, right? But when you do manage grid, what the question is, I think there's a DNN answer to what theme is this? What
I'm sorry, for some reason my headset is not synced with Zoom today. So I was talking and then I realized anyway, there's a theme that you set for admin screens, but this is not that theme. I don't think that's so
So I think it would be there's probably some breadcrumbs, but it would be a research project for figuring out how these come to pass, where they get loaded. And the answer is I don't know the answer, and I saw your question, and in the absence of knowing an answer, I stayed quiet. But I did click the follow along button in case anybody else got a bright idea
Well,
that I could.
thank you. Yeah, that's as far as I am too. I would be also pleased to just know like of a JS file that I could go and tack on a little bit to it, or maybe somehow where I could include a reference to my own JavaScript file, anything along those lines.
Uh,
So
yeah,
that's good.
that is a great question. At the DNN level, is there, I wonder if in SEO there's any place to be able to add things.
Are you sure that's a page template that DNN's providing? Because I would think that would be a page template that Plant and App is
So
providing.
Dale, can you go back to your inspector for a second? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I think that's a Plant and
Yeah.
App page called manage.aspx. I believe it's found.
Yeah, if you go under, I mean, back to your inspector, yeah. If you go under sources, the sources tab,
Mhm.
and then expand desktop modules, DNN Sharp. Oh wait, you don't have them there. Huh. Sources page, yeah, there you go, and expand desktop modules, DNN Sharp, common static. Oh no, there you are, right there. Yeah, expand the static right there above action forms static. You're in a, yeah, that admin.min.css. I think that's where the CSS is coming from.
Well, manage.aspx, I'm sorry, Ben, what were you pointing out?
No, that was the one, manage.aspx. That seems to be the file that's being loaded when you're managing a
Mhm.
Plant and App module. I wouldn't suggest putting anything in that file though, because as you mentioned, if you do that the next time you do an update, it's just going to wipe out that code.
Right. Makes sense.
But actually, this is probably a good spot to go to look to try to find where things, what things are being loaded, and then perhaps locating one, either finding a way to add one to the list, or something that is intended to be modified. As you point out, this one is desktop modules, DNN Sharp, Action Grid, and Manage. So this would just be the manage for one product, and you'd have a different one for forms. And I wonder.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Sorry, it's not. Sorry again, not a great answer. And I suppose from a feature request standpoint, being able to add JavaScript to the admin screens would be.
Even more importantly, I think though that there is a feature request to be able to search your fields, and that's exactly what you're trying to accomplish there, Mark. So that's probably
you're tired of waiting for us.
I think that's probably the
You know,
feature request we should focus on.
well, that would be nice, but
Yeah.
actually, it's the visual recognition that I would appreciate having. And full disclosure, when I submit something like that, my mind doesn't stop on it. So I'm still working on it, and time passes, and I usually come up with something that I'm then testing and working with. So at this point, I've made a browser bookmarklet that when clicked, it's like a bookmark. You just click it, and now it will highlight my chosen fields in the Manage Fields view, as well as in the Layout view, as well as on the Form view. It'll highlight the fields I want it to highlight. And it's very temporary. It's not destructive. So it injects some CSS and JavaScript into the page. and then when you refresh, it's gone. And so it helps me when I'm developing. And you know, I want to see which fields are where, especially in the manage fields view, like where the heck is this? Because sometimes there's a lot of stuff in there, and I can find it very quickly and easily. I will be glad to share that when it's ready. It's very close.
Nice. We'll look forward to that. I wanted to mention that I helped and on what turned out to be kind of a ghost story this week, having to do with the user registration and user profile actions. And since we're almost out of time, we're 1 minute over, I'm just going to mention, I think, Matt, the issue that we ran into is the user registration action has a checkbox that says if the username and password is right, then log in with these credentials. And I think that's broken. And so the result then was the user profile was blown up because you were not logged in as that user. So the rearrangement that you did to fix that was not relying on that broken feature.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big 10-4, good buddy.
That's
I
good to
had to
know.
stop it. It took me a couple of days to realize that WAE works as expected. That's what you said it worked, WAE, and what does that mean? But I'm glad you got it. All right. So I don't know, how long did you spend chasing? Did it qualify as a ghost story trying to make that work?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was yeah, it was hours tracking it down.
And
So I threw up my hands in frustration, sent it over the rail to you. You said, "Hey, dum-dum, do this."
no,
And it worked.
I'm pretty sure the ticket did not say dum-dum, although maybe the AI has
Sorry.
started to be sassy, but
I read between your lines.
okay. All right. Very easy to fill that hour. We will turn off the recording in a minute and jump into our Afterglow segment for a few more minutes, so hang around if you want to. But thanks for spending this hour with us, and we'll be doing it again next week.